Any better?
It looks good. It needs to angle up a little bit.
Angle up a little bit. Okay, we are getting ready. Everybody, you're seeing the behind the scenes.
Oh, you get it all raw, you know what I mean? Like, you get it from the beginning, the setup, you get everything else.
Right there?
Yeah. I'd love to see the lead humano in the background. Like, the colors really stand out.
I love it when we are impromptu. Hello, everybody. This is Luz Frasier with the Lead Humano Collective, and I am thrilled. Squeeze on over. Come back a little closer, too. I am thrilled to introduce you to Tree, who is with me today to talk about a topic that I am sure you are all very interested in. This is all about having a winning mindset. And there's no better way to do this other than talking to people who really believe in it, that put it into practice, that maybe have stumbled a little bit, but then figured out how to get themselves back up. And a winning mindset is what we need in order to accomplish the types of goals that we have in our lives that are meaningful to us. And for those of you who don't know, I am the founder and the CEO of the Lead Humano Collective, Luz Frasier. You are here in our office.
Beautiful office, too.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thrilled that you're here. And Becoming is a live stream that we do every other week to bring these types of topics right onto your platform and just to shake it up for you. I mean, we constantly are scrolling and looking at things on Facebook, aren't we?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nice to catch something that is meaningful and maybe help us think about life in a different perspective, learn from others, and really challenge ourselves in different ways. So that's what this is all about. That's why we're here live. I'm going to be using my laptop to keep in touch with all of you as you're coming on and sharing this moment with us. So as I'm doing that, I want to take this opportunity to ask Tu to introduce himself more formally. I can just simply say that I'm a fan. I've been impressed with your perspective on life and how much you give back to the community and helping others elevate themselves. So tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Thank you, Luz. Thank you for the introduction. And again, this is a beautiful place. For those that haven't visited, I recommend you come by. There's a lot of different services, a lot of different trainings and coaching. And sometimes people don't realize that we're so busy in our own lives that it takes a third person perspective. It takes an outside point of view to really recenter ourselves and situate our goals for us. Because when you're caught in the mess, when you're caught in your everyday life, you forget about everything else and you get so distracted and tunnel vision towards the problem that's in front of you. And a little bit about myself. I grew up in Lawrence. I lived there pretty much from 5 years old, and I didn't move too far away. We just went to North Andover. Graduated out of Lawrence High 2000, went to Clark University, so stayed in Massachusetts for college, got a business degree out of there. Joined the Air Force after that, after 9/11, and then again for UMass Lowell when I got out of the military for a psychology degree. And since then, what I realized was that growing up in Lawrence, you know, it taught me to be very resilient. It taught me to be very protective of my values and who I am. But at the same time, what it taught me was I grew up very defensively, you know, and you don't realize that when you're in the moment. So when I was a kid, I would always ask, I have great potential, I'm willing to learn. How come no one stops by and gives me advice or gives me a tip or two on how to really accelerate my life or excel in what I'm doing? And it wasn't until I came back years later, after 2 degrees, after service in the military, that I realized when I was going through the city, when I was growing up, I was so closed off that even if someone did give me advice, I didn't interpret it the right way. I didn't take the lessons that they were trying to share with me. And because of that, my vision was very limited, right? And sometimes we need that mentorship, that coaching. And I love what Luz does because it allows me to also be more aware of myself. Because when you're in your shoes, you only see the path that you're walking, right? And someone else that's looking at you from a different angle, they can see the horizon, they can see the potential, the opportunity. And sometimes we need that extra voice, right? Not only God's voice, not only your parents and friends. Sometimes the people closest to us, we hear it so often that we don't really listen to their message. Yeah. But it takes someone else to say, hey, you know, you have good things going on. You just might need to refocus a little bit. And those little voices, they carry you a very long way.
Yeah. I love what you're already starting to talk about, even in your introduction. you have been, sounds like from the very beginning, really focused on understanding that a mindset is available to you at any point. The development of a mindset, rather,
Yes.
right? The opportunity to expand your perspective, expand your way of thinking is always available. It's whether or not we choose to understand that it's there and we choose to learn from it. So for an example, when you were talking about, folks would give you information or give you insight, right? That whole thing of like, well, I'm going to take or leave
Right.
whatever I feel like, right? And I think that's fine. You can take or leave whatever parts of the advice it is, but the mindset is where I think there's a muscle to develop so that we
Absolutely.
can see the growth potential in ourselves. So first question for you two, as you've been exploring this concept of mindset, first of all, let's define what it means to you. And you're not a young child or a teenager anymore.
I
You're
wish.
a grown man, family man, professional, community leader. What have you learned about mindset? What does it mean to you?
And that's a really good question because, when you're growing up, when you're young, usually you're trying to buy things that you don't need with money that you don't have to impress people that you don't necessarily get along with or even like. And when it comes to mindset, when we're growing up in those environments, sometimes opinions carry way too much weight. Someone's opinion of you doesn't have to be your reality. You actually have the power to choose if you want to make their opinion your reality, or you can design and create your own life. And for me, I didn't learn that lesson until I was in my 30s. It wasn't until after I met my wife and I had a daughter. It was my little girl, okay? Her name is Cosette from Les Mis. And it wasn't until watching her or seeing her that I realized I had to be a better person. Not so much as be more, right? Because we always have the potential. You never really meet yourself, okay? Like, and that's what I get excited about is I want to eventually know who my children grow up to be because that will show me whether I did a good job as a parent or not. I tell people there's no book in life that's going to teach you how to parent properly.
Yeah.
But when your kids are in their 30s, when they become adults or when they become parents, who they are as a person will determine how well you did, like raising them up. Not to say that we're here to compare or grow ourselves based on others around us, but sometimes when you learn the mindset concept, it's not about what you think you know. The reality is what you don't know. Because in all truth, we don't know our full potential yet. And sometimes when you're too comfortable, when you're too focused on one thing, in that moment, you limit your growth because all you are is embracing where you are in that moment. And sometimes there's a saying, worrying is nothing more than worshiping negativity in your life.
Yeah.
The more you worry, the more you're putting that problem a priority, right? There's people that love you. There are so many different other priorities that you need to take care of. But when you worry about something and so fixated on it, it becomes the only thing you know, and it almost seems like you're worshiping the problem, right? And all you're doing is bringing in more problems because the law of attraction is what you put your energy, what you put your focus on multiplies, right? And the universe doesn't have pros and cons. It doesn't have good or bad. It's very neutral. So it doesn't matter if you're thinking about bad debt or bad relationship or if you're thinking about, I don't know, like it's funny because in my life, I'm not too focused around negativity. So when I try to think of negative moments, I'm like, I have to dig really deep back. Right?
This is a good thing.
Right? But the more you worry about something that's out of your control, you're worshiping the problem.
Yeah.
Versus if you're putting your faith and belief in someone like God, in something like your family, your children, right? You have a focus where you want to strive and become more and achieve more, right? Just because of where you're putting that focus and energy.
I think the growth potential is all in what you described to is think about it as you're in a container.
Yeah.
You're in a container. And that container is all you see. Whatever is surrounding you within that container is what you see. And if you remain there, that's all you have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? There is no growth from that. But if you put yourself in a position in which you've opened that container to allow light to come in, to allow, let's say, nutrition through conversations with people that you typically don't talk to, right? Or let's say you decide to start reading and you open up your mind to different types of philosophies because you're not in a container anymore. You are allowing new information to flow through you. It starts to shift your mindset. So to talk to me about an experience that you've had or a practice that significantly contributed to your own winning mindset, because sometimes, and I think you'll agree to this, we all want to win, don't we? I mean, I don't know of a human being that says,
Absolutely.
I don't want anything in life other than to live in this moment and that's it, like nothing. So if we want to win, how come some of us can win bigger? And I know everybody has different aspirations, but what's it take? What's your experience in taking it to that winning mindset, that next level mindset? How do you do that?
You know, and the funny thing is, if there's a winning, there's also a losing, right? You can't win if you don't understand the loss. And sometimes, you know, when you talk about winning and losing, it's always a game. Like, you know, usually winning and losing, it surrounds itself around a game. And I always, well, I can't say I always, but I had a great guidance counselor in Lawrence High, and he was always there for me through some of the toughest times. Usually the toughest times in your life are through teenage years, right? And what I've learned was that you can either win or you can learn. Right? There's really no losing. The only time you lose is when you give up or when you settle or when you're content with life. That's when you really lose, because now you're no longer applying yourself. Right? So when we talk about winning, I used to be really big into fitness. It doesn't look like it now, but I used to love working out. And when you work out, there's this phrase called pushing yourself to failure. Right? And you have to fail. The more you fail, the more you know what you don't want in your life. And when you push yourself to failure through working out, what that means is that you're doing your set to the point where you can no longer do another one. You're so exhausted. And in order for you to develop muscle, you have to rip and tear your muscles so that when it heals, it actually develops stronger, right? And sometimes I tell people you're either scared or prepared. And the only difference between scared and prepared is whether you're aware, self-awareness, right? And those that are scared are afraid to challenge themselves. They're afraid of the unknown. So sometimes they'll stay in a bad situation and they don't want to change because they're scared. At least they know their bad situation. They're comfortable in their bad, right? Versus going out there and trying something new and potentially fail or potentially be upset or disappointed. And those are the people that really don't excel in their life in that moment because they haven't reached that awareness. Those that are prepared, you're always over prepared. You're leaving 10 minutes early from whatever you need to do, always on time, because you never know if traffic's going to be there, accidents. People are always learning, reading books. The best thing about reading books is that you can read the same book 10 times at different stages in your life and learn a different lesson every single time.
Sure. Because
you only get the lesson that you're looking for in that moment, right? So when you're talking about developing habits or winning habits, if we're talking about winning and losing, the question is, are you in the game? Are you in your game of life? Okay, and the reason why that's important is because most of us are spectators in other people's lives.
Oh, we watch everybody.
Absolutely.
Yes, we are watching what everybody is doing.
The Jones, what they're doing, the Kardashians, right?
It's true.
And we're always watching to see if they succeed or if they fail. Most of the time, we're rooting for them to fail for whatever reason that might be, right? But we're always spectating someone else's life versus being active and engaged and building and participating in your own life, in your own winning, right? I tell people, they ask me all the time too, when do you sleep? You know, I have maybe 4 to 6 hours a day of sleep. I'm always doing this, that. I connect people, I network, I travel. And the reason being, I tell them, when you live and when you have the life that I've had, you're more excited that you're awake because your dreams are right now. Like everything that I want in my life, I'm blessed. I have a great family, you know, wife, 5 kids. They're happy, they're healthy, as best as can be, right? And I say that because sometimes they're too healthy, too energetic.
For your own good,
right?
For your own.
Right? But when your life is so exciting that you'd rather be awake than sleeping, that says something.
Yeah.
You know, it says something about a winning. It's not so much as winning or losing, but you're just more in the moment and you're embracing what life is blessing you with.
I love what you're talking about. I want to rewind the tape for a second because you talked about scared or prepared.
Yes.
And one of the things that I feel is why we stay in our container. And let me shift the language. Maybe folks will identify with this comfort zone philosophy, right? Like we're in our comfort zone. That's what I call a container. And the reason why I associate the comfort zone in a container as a way of describing a way of being is because the comfort zone is the container.
Absolutely.
When you are in your comfort zone, you are only within the parameters of that zone or container. So when you talked about being scared or prepared, I think a lot of people stay within that comfort zone.
They do.
Because they are scared. So if we are trying to expand that comfort zone, or at least create more space within that container, because sometimes I think people are afraid of the big breakthrough.
Right.
It's too much for them.
You're right.
Have you experienced for yourself where you have expanded your comfort zone to at least experience new things? You talked about this, more experiences, more connections. How have you gone about expanding that comfort zone so it's not so scary that I want to like get sick and withdraw from the world and hide, but enough for me to say, oh, I got a taste of this. I'm learning something.
Right.
I'm elevating a little bit. Talk to us about that. How can we do that?
That's a great question. And the reason why it's such a great question is because there's two types of fear in our lives. One is the fear of failure. Okay, we don't want to try something and be bad at it. Right? So some people just never try. Or they try once and they realize, like, you know what I mean, I can't do it. They go to a tryout for a team or something and they feel like they compare themselves to other people, right? And the reality is in competition or in a winning mindset, you have to compare to who you were yesterday, who you were an hour ago, not to others. Because you don't know how many years of experience they've had. You don't know what kind of background or history they've. So it's not fair to compare to someone that might have been 20, 30 years in the industry versus someone that is brand new. Now, the other fear is the fear of success, believe it or not.
Yes.
People have a fear of success where they might get to a level and they disappoint the people around them or that they can't manage that workload, right? And so the best way to really approach this is not to take a lot of people say just jump and leap into the deep end, right? And depending on how you are as a person, that's why self-awareness is so important. You have to know who you are. Because who you are will determine your process, right? Like everything's a process in life. It's not win or lose. That's why I say it's win or learn. And that process is really measured by small victories. You have to set up the small victories in life because there are no big victories. Those big victories are all the hours that you put into a practice or a training, all the times you go and push for one more rep in a workout, for all the times that you keep your own promises to yourself. And I say this because just think of how many times we break promises to ourselves. This is going to be a new day. This is going to be a new year. This is going to be a new life. I'm going to try new things. And then the TV turns on. You start swiping. You see a video on Facebook. And now that promise to become a little bit better than you were yesterday is consumed by other people's lives. And now you're a spectator again.
Yeah.
Right? And the problem with breaking promises to yourself is that you develop this internal subconscious acceptance of letting people disappoint you because you're disappointing yourself. And if I can disappoint myself, I can't expect Luz to hold me accountable. I can't expect other people to hold me accountable. So just imagine if any time in your life in this year alone, we're on like day 24. If you said, this is going to be a new start for me, and then you wake up and say, I'll do it tomorrow. You just broken a promise that you made to yourself, whether you signed the paper or shook your own hand or not. But these small victories are what really excels you to the next level because when you say, that's not so bad, I can do this. I did it once. I can do it again. And the funny thing is, to be part of the top 20% in this country, people think, oh my goodness, I can't be part of the top 20%. That's too far. And it wasn't until I broke 6 figures and I'm like, oh, you mean if I make 6 figures, I'm already the top 25%? What do I need to break the top 20? And then I'm like, oh, from 100,000 to 130, if you look it up, to be in the top 20% in the country, you need to make 130,000. So what do? 130,000, kind of a little bit over 10,000 a month, a little bit over $2,500 a week. That's one client. If I help one client a week, I'm going to be in the top 20%, right? So now you're not trying to break 130,000 a year. You're trying to help one client a week.
That's a mindset, right?
That is absolutely
you
a mindset.
broke that down from super scary, super like overwhelming
Yeah,
to
out
like
of my reach.
doom. If I just do these things,
Yep.
I can get there. That's a mindset shift.
Absolutely.
Right? But how do you get to the point where you're like, this looks really scary. I don't know if I can do it. And you've got all that competing, all that feedback, all the negative cycles that we've gone through, the trauma, the negative beliefs and stuff. Let's keep it real, right? We've all gone through things that come back into our lives, convincing us that what we experienced in the past is what we're going to continue to experience. And that's not the case. So how do you make that shift to, how do you go from, I don't think I can do it, or my previous experiences tell me that I can't do it because I wasn't able to do it, to actually doing it?
It's funny because this should have been, to me, from the way I responded, this should have been the first thing that I spoke about. And that comes down to having goals and a purpose. You know what I mean? If you don't know what your purpose is, or if you don't have a purpose for what you do, you'll never find that fulfillment in doing it. Some people chase money, some people chase fame and success, but at the end of the day, they still feel very empty within themselves because they didn't satisfy the purpose. And we look at today's world, most of our younger generations, they don't have goals. And it's not because they don't set goals for themselves, but we as a community don't have goals for ourselves. And because of that, they learn, right? So like, what are some of the goals that you have in your life? If you don't have a 6-month goal, a 1-year goal, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year goal, then you don't have the direction that you're focused on, right? Because how are you going to hit a target blindfolded? And most people wake up all day and they're walking zombies. So what difference is it if you leave your house with a blindfold on and say, I'm going to live my life? What kind of a life are you going to really live? And the funny thing is, it only takes 1 degree of separation where you change your sail, right? Let's say there's a destination islands away or years or decades away, and you have a destination, you have a goal. By 50, I told my wife, by 55, I'm going to retire. By the time Kalani's 18, I'm out of the house, and you won't be able to find me. That's my goal, right? And how do I get to that goal? Well, I break it down. But just if you're in the middle of the ocean and the wind is taking you, if you change your sail by just 1 degree, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you're in a very, very different place. We're not talking about dramatic change.
Yeah.
We're talking about little changes, small victories, little habits. We have to know where our habits are because they will determine our destination. And success, people think success is having the money, the fame. Success is in the person that you become. Success is not a destination because if this was my mountain that I climbed and I reached that peak, it's not like, all right, kick off my shoes, I'm done. That's it. For the next 40 years, I have no other goals, no other dreams. I've reached the peak, right? Because once you hit the top of that mountain, guess what? There's another mountain.
There's another
mountain, right? And those are other victories and achievements and successes. So the success is the journey on who you become and whether or not you become more or you're just going to be the same person, right? So when you chase money, and that's why like having great people around you, surrounding yourself with the right mindset, the right people, is important because it'll determine whether you're growing or you're stagnant, right?
I think that's really powerful, and it's just bringing me back to those moments in life in which we question ourselves. Why are these things not happening for me? Why am I not able to achieve? Why am I not able to obtain? Why? Why is this person doing it, not me?
Absolutely.
If we're honest with ourselves too, I think that if we really reflect on where we are, the question that I think folks should be asking themselves that really aligns to what you're saying is, why am I stuck? Like, am I stuck? The question is, am I stuck?
Yeah.
Right?
That is the question.
Is the reason why I'm not obtaining and not achieving and not succeeding, whatever it is that you're trying to obtain in life, is that because you are stuck somewhere in your life, in your mindset, in how you see the world? And for me, it's again, being in that comfort zone. And to your point, when we set ourselves a goal, we become unstuck in that now we have something to go after.
Absolutely.
Right? I want to introduce this concept, which I know you know very well, this concept of intention. Mm-hmm. So I'm of the firm believer that you can set a goal, and a goal is great. Mm-hmm. And it will give me vision to work towards something and a mindset that's beyond this place of being stuck in my head that I can't do it or whatever it is. The intent that fuels a goal. What does that mean to you? How do we use this idea of intention to get closer to obtaining our goals?
Life is filled with decisions. You know what I mean? And if you don't make a decision, you made the choice. Okay? When it comes to intention, it's really powerful because a lot of people, they wake up and they fill their days with meaningless or empty actions, right? I tell people you can design your life the way that you want it if you wake up every day and you live with that kind of intention, because at the same time, all of your actions, all of your energy, you're going to exert it anyways. You're going to exert it in one way or another. But if you have good intentions to grow, develop yourself, you have a bigger purpose or goal in general, and you do it with intentions, you know that every ounce of effort that you're putting forward. But we as
oh my goodness,
don't have goals
hold
for
up,
ourselves.
I don't know how that happened.
Right? So like, what are some of It's funny because every time I hear myself on a recording, I'm like, wow, I sound so weird. But in the moment, I'm like, wow, I love this conversation, right?
Okay, I can't reply. I'm trying to reply to Frank. Frank, you had such a great comment. Can I just pause for a second?
Absolutely.
And I was trying to reply to Frank. And Frank says, sometimes one is forced out of their comfort zone and ends up having to reinvent or pushed into another level one would have never known because of fear. I think that's really profound. And you have been talking about this. So Frank is like, sometimes, you're stuck in that comfort zone, and sometimes life happens.
Absolutely, all the
in
time.
which it pushes you. And it forces you to reinvent yourself, whether you like it or not. So, what can you tell, can you make those connections for us in terms of, the fact that you started with the concept of scared, and prepared, right? And that's the whole goal. Can we be prepared so when we are pushed out of our comfort zone, it doesn't become so scary anymore. It doesn't paralyze us anymore.
Frank, thank you for that comment because it reminded me of Jim Rohn, who I love. I love listening to Jim Rohn. I love his books. I'm a big fan of his. And one of the best things one of the topics, there's so many best things, right? So I can't say it. But Jim Rohn mentioned we're not trees, right? We're not trees. We grow up and we're individuals. We're not rooted. We can change our destination. We can change our environment anytime we want, right? And when you talk about in that moment is that you have to be adaptable, right? And the thing is being prepared allows you to readjust yourself and know the environment that you're in and change it if necessary. And usually, when you talk about, when we go back to that fear concept, some people, in order for them to excel or in order for them to find motivation, they have to lose it all. I never understood that concept where you have to lose everything, sacrifice everything, and make it so bad and make it hurt so much for you to be motivated to change, because you're never going to find yourself in that moment, because every time you reach a new level, you have to lose everything again and then get that motivation back, right? And one of the things, to go back again to Frank, I know I'm bouncing back and forth, but for every new level of accomplishment, every new level that you unlock, if we're talking about games, right? Every time you upgrade, you have to understand that every new level of success or achievement will unlock new devils. And those,
what does that mean?
New levels, new devils, right?
Oh my goodness, what does that mean?
It means that some of the challenges that we face now, some of the devils, the whisper, the negativity, the voices right now, we're able to overcome those, right? So in the moment when you're trying to start something new, for example, you want to start a new business, you're going to have people that say, oh, there's already too many people out there that do that. Oh, you're not good enough. You're not prepared. And then you go and you do it. And then you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. Now I want to take it to the next level. Then you have people, and you'll see this. You'll have people that once they make a little bit of success, once they get a little more money, they start messing around, right? They start cheating on their spouses. They start gambling, or they start getting to addictions like alcohol and stuff. New levels of successes will unlock new devils, okay? And you have to be able to pivot and adjust and face all of that, all of those challenges and obstacles in order to, one, become. And so this is where, like, if you don't have a core to who you are, you're going to be swayed with temptations all along the way. That's why some people get to levels of success and money and they throw their whole life away, right? Because they're not able to face those new devils that they're, because when you're not making a lot of money, you're not going to be faced with, like, no one's going to try to take you across the country, and no one's going to try to get you into business deals that, are outside of your reach, right? But sometimes when you have a little bit of success, and some people don't realize this, you have to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be, because money doesn't change people. A lot of people think that money is the root of all evil, that money changes people. It's not true. Money exposes who you are, right? If you gave Mother Teresa $1 million, you think she's going to go out and gamble and drink and party all night? No, she's going to help more people.
And can I share a perspective on that, in that I think it's super powerful what you just shared. For me, when you are clear, who you are is, for me, based on your intent for
Right.
who you are in life. So for an example, if your intention in life is to be a blessing for your family and be a blessing to others, and that means that everything you do in life is to provide for your family and to be supportive and a blessing to other people in your community, I believe that no matter how much money you have, if you are grounded in that intent, you will leverage that money for that reason. It's when we don't have a goal, when we don't have an intent, when we don't live our lives with purpose, that we are, I think, tempted to the point that you made, right? That's where the temptation comes into play. So what are some strategies for us to leverage in this journey that we're in to level up our mindset? Let's think about, for an example, your opinion on how important is self-reflection in nurturing a winning mindset, or perhaps there's other strategies that you've used that keeps you focused on your goal, your intent, so that when temptation comes, you're grounded, right? And your mindset is cleared towards what you want to achieve. What can you tell us about practical things that we can do?
Practical things. One, always be a student. You're never going to learn everything. You know, the moment you think you know everything, you don't know anything, right? Because there's always new people, new books, new chapters, new experiences that will teach you new lessons. And sometimes people think just because they've gained a little bit of knowledge or they gain a little bit of success that they know it all already. And that was the problem when I was younger, and I felt like people weren't reaching out to me. I felt like I knew it all. I was already too good. I was too smart. I grew up, and the problem is when you tell your kids that they're too smart or they're awesome all the time, they grow up thinking that they already know everything, because when they compare themselves, we always want the next generation to be greater than us, without a doubt, right? But when they grow up and you don't encourage them to continue learning, they think that they already know it all. And unfortunately for me, I was very defensive, so no one could tell me otherwise, right? I wasn't very trusting, and I was very arrogant, right? I mean, you grow up in Lawrence, and you had to have this kind of ego to survive, right? And the problem with that is little things is, one, I would say always be a student. Always read. Always read or listen to audiobooks. Always listen from people. Always listen to people that are where you want to be. Don't listen to people where they're not. You don't take your baby to a mechanic if they're sick. You know what I mean? You don't, sometimes, because sometimes people have good intentions and they share, advice and opinions, but they might not be the right person to give it to you. Right? So you always have to reach out to other people, because no matter at what level you are, even if you have all the money, you might learn on how to be more empathetic, right? Or they might teach you how to manage your finances. They might teach you other perspectives or values in other areas of your life that can be developed. And that's the problem, is sometimes we need to continue to develop ourselves. And we have formal education, which is great. It gives everyone a foundation on where to start. But formal education doesn't get you to where you want to be. If you look at it, it just teaches us how to be obedient. It teaches us some skills that we might need to study and learn. But self-education is really what people need to focus on, because a teacher can't look at me and tell me what I need to know, because they don't know me as an individual or as a person. You know you as an individual and as a person, right? So you have to take it upon yourself, the responsibility and the accountability, to take in the lessons or to find the lessons that will help develop you as an individual, versus waiting for someone to tell you what you need to know, because even with good intentions, they might need you to know what they want you to know in order for them to excel, not so much as for you to excel, right?
Yeah, that is absolutely right. And what I love about what you're talking about in terms of learning, I've always thought about my life as a continuous cycle of learning and improving, I call it the learning loop. You learn something, you can bet that you're going to improve in some aspect of your life. to me, that is the strategy for expanding your comfort zone,
Absolutely.
for stepping out of your comfort zone. And it is the most empowering way for you to shift how you currently think about life and what you're trying to achieve, and fight all those negative beliefs that you talked about, and find yourself in a breakthrough experience. Because when you learn something, isn't that the whole point of learning something? Now you know something you didn't know before.
Yeah.
And what you know now helps you do different things. And those different things that you're doing help you obtain different things.
Yeah.
And once you have those things, I heard you say, once you have it, then you know you can go after more.
Right.
And once you have more, you said it keeps elevating you, right? It's really powerful. And it seems like it's not the most difficult concept to grasp. I think it's most difficult in practice.
It is.
Right?
It is. And you bring up really good points. Learning something is just the beginning. If you learn something and you don't apply it, it's meaningless. It's meaningless. Some people graduate with master's and doctor's degrees in fields where they don't go out and work in that field, and they're not actually putting it to practice, so they don't see the results from everything that they've learned, or they don't see that development, right? Because again, when we talk about, formal education, someone that has a master's in social services, for example, they do a great deed for the world, they do a great effort for the communities, right? But they don't get paid well. Versus someone that is a licensed electrician. Right now, they're like hot in demand. They can make anything that they want, right? And the market determines that value when you focus only on formal education. So having the knowledge or learning is just the beginning. How you apply what you learn is really where the magic happens. You can learn, and we can be sponges to absorb everything, but if you don't go out there and actually apply any of it, it's meaningless, it's useless, right? It's just a collection of data. And that's why Henry Ford really expressed it best when they didn't believe that he was qualified where he was. He said, why do I need to know all of this information when at a push of a button, I can summon someone who has that information? And that's the importance of having a team, right? You have to have people that complement your weaknesses, because they naturally will excel in what they're good at, so that you can naturally excel at what you're good at. We all have different gifts.
Yes.
We all have different gifts. There's no need for us to be better than someone in their own field, right? Embrace it, support each other, make sure they win, because if they win, you'll win, right?
Yeah.
Just in that whole concept. So when it comes to
Absolutely.
learning, it's not the learning, right? People say, knowledge is power. And that's absolutely not true. Knowledge
If you
is
don't
not,
do anything with
Yeah.
it, right?
Yep, and that's exactly what it is.
There is no power.
Yes. Applied knowledge is power.
Applied knowledge. I love that. And that's the whole point of me talking about being stuck. If you know you're stuck, don't complain that you're stuck, because if you're not willing to take an action, right, then you're stuck. You're only stuck because you decided to be stuck.
And you made that choice.
You made that choice, and I'm not making fun of it. Trust me, I have been in that situation, but that's the aha moment that I had. I'm like, oh yes, I am where I am because I chose to be where I am. If I don't want to be where I am, I have control over that. I can shift my mindset and say, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore.
Right.
This is what I want. My intent is get clear on that and go after it. One last question, too, because I can't let you go without asking this. And you started to touch on it, but I just want to give you an opportunity to put a final point on it. We have a lot of people that may be curious about whether it be a team that they work with as a leader, or whether it be people that they love and they're supporting their progress in life and they're really championing people. How can we foster a winning mindset in others, whether it be a team or our family members? We have children, we have people we care about. We want even our community, right? We may not know everybody in our community, but we want our community to succeed. How do you begin to instill, foster that winning mindset in others?
I mean, it starts with valuing them, right? We have to value people. We have to be able to appreciate people. And I say that because there was a story about Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant trusts himself 100%, because he knows what time he wakes up to go to the gym. He knows how many hours of practice he puts in. He knows his own commitment to being at that level, right? So there was a time when Shaq was injured, Shaquille O'Neal, and he was injured, and Kobe really stepped up and he became this all-star. and he was loving it, right? One, he was loving it because he was now applying what he's learned and trained for so many years of his life to excel and exceed in what he was doing. And his coach pulled him aside when Shaq came back into the rotation, and he said, "Hey, you know what, Kobe, you're doing great. You're doing great, but I'm gonna need you to turn it down just a little bit. I need you to take it down a notch." And for someone, if you have your ego up here, right, you have all this pride, all this ego, and someone says, "Hey, you're doing too much. You need to, calm down a little bit." They take offense to that. Like I've trained hard. Like I should be at the best. I should get the ball every time. I should be the one that has the most scores, right? And it takes a lot out of you as a leader, as an individual, to say, I need to let someone else take the spotlight. Because if Kobe kept scoring as much as he did, Shaq would have felt like he wasn't necessary, and he wasn't going to get the time, the game time, and he wasn't going to get the experience that he wanted, and he might have left to a different team. But because Kobe was able to say, okay, and I'm sure it wasn't easy for him, he was like, all right, I'll turn it down a notch so that he can also excel at what he's best at. You know what I mean? And if you can value and appreciate the people in your life and allow them, not speak over them, not to be better than them. Sometimes we go out there and we're trying to be better than everybody else in their own field. I'll tell a doctor what is right. Don't give me medication.
I Googled it.
Right. I'm a WebMD. I know more than you, right? And that's the problem with today, is that we think we know everything all the time, even if we don't have any specialization in that field. You allow people to be their best, and you encourage and support them to be their best. I tell people, I want you to succeed in your business. I'm not going to take over coaching. I'm not going to take over football. I'm not going to take over all of that stuff because I don't have the time to train myself in that. I don't have time to go back to school, get the license certification. I want you to succeed because if you succeed, now I have someone that can guide me and someone I can turn to if I need someone in that field, right? But the moment you make them feel like, oh, they're always comparing themselves to you, they're always sizing you up, they're always saying somebody else is doing better, what purpose do they want to keep you in their life? Because you're one of those, and unfortunately the people closest to us are always the ones that pull us down the fastest, right? So surrounding yourself and surrounding your team with that winning mindset, saying, you know, you're really good, give constructive criticism or feedback, right? You know, in that moment, I think you could have done this, or I think you might have lost me there. And if I got lost in that moment, then maybe other people might have got lost, right? You can say things in productive ways, right? But you don't, hey, you're terrible. Like, don't ever, like, go find a new job, don't quit your day job, right? And
yeah, that doesn't produce a winning mindset.
It doesn't. But when they fail, what you don't realize is that when you make someone else feel like they're failing, you failed. You failed, because our purpose in life is to serve others and to help others, right? If you're not helping, like, think about any industry. If a doctor had no patients, how are they successful? If a mechanic had no cars to fix because no one likes them, like, I'm a financial planner. If I had no clients that wanted to trust me with their portfolio, like, how are you winning? Like, how are you, right? So you want everyone to win. And if you think that you can build everything on your own, then there's going to be a very rude awakening at the end, because Jim Rohn said, I'd rather live in a tent on the beach surrounded by the people I love than alone in a mansion. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of level of success are you looking for? Because if you have to step on top of everyone to get there, I mean, how good are you going to feel at the end of the day, right? Yeah. Like, what's your level of success, or how do you measure that kind of success? So having a team or having a community that appreciates you because you appreciate them, they'll carry you further than you'll ever walk on your own, than you'll ever be able to walk on your own.
Wow. Yeah, that's something to think about as we bring this conversation to a close. I love all of that, too. Thank you for the golden nuggets, for the gifts that you've given us throughout this conversation. There was some nice commentary here saying that this was really insightful. And again, it gives you a break from looking at the things that you typically look at on Facebook.
Cats,
and
kittens.
This gives you something to really consider and build upon. For me, I think one of the things that we can do best in helping others expand their mindset and achieve their goals is to be a good role model. I start in my own household. If I am a good role model of the can-do attitude, as silly as it sounds, I can do it.
Yep.
That matters, because when I'm saying that, so is my daughter, my son, my husband. right? And so for me, it all boils down to what's your choice in life? Are you choosing to be in the container, in that comfort zone? And even if you get pushed out, I love that commentary earlier. Even if you get pushed out, we are creatures of habit and conditioning. We find ourselves right back into a comfort zone.
Yeah.
It may not be exactly the same comfort zone, but we find ourselves back into a comfort zone. So the question, again, we want to leave you with is, what are you choosing for yourself? A winning mindset is a choice. And two, you taught us all these different concepts and philosophies around how we can nurture a mindset, how we can strategize a mindset, how we can overcome the mindsets that we had that keep us from winning. So you have really set us up for a successful rest of the day and throughout our journeys. I hope that you pick out one or two of the things that Tu talked about and put them into practice. You can follow Tu Tree. You can find the information. I'll put it in the comments. Follow him because he's always providing some great insight and some really winning mindset things. I love to follow you. You can also follow me, Luz Frasier, on Facebook, and the Lead Humano Collective. Just look up Lead Humano. It's Lead Human with an O. Yay! And I too always provide insight on how to really be effective as a leader in organizations. I'm an executive coach and a facilitator of leader development, amongst other things. But we are very happy that you joined us. Thank you so much for tuning in. And our next session will be on Friday, the 7th of February. If you follow, you'll get notification of who we're inviting in next to be coming. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. Last words.
You know, the final word for me is life is going to be hard. Whether you win, lose, life is going to be hard. Whether you're rich or poor, life is going to be hard. There's no such thing as the more successful or the more money you make, that life gets easier. That's not true. And I say that because you can choose to have a hard life by having an abundance, a hard life with abundance, or you can have a hard life with scarcity, right? But no matter what happens, life doesn't get easier. If it gets easier, that means that there's not enough things in your life that you care about. Because if there are things and people that you care about, life doesn't get easier because we're always going to want to take care, protect, provide. We always you want your cup to overflow because the more you can take care of your families, now you're able to take care of other people.
Yes.
But if your cup is half empty or empty, you could barely take care of yourself. So, I tell people you want to be in the moment. And the only way that you can be in the moment with someone is if you took care of yourself. Because if someone's getting half of you, your mind's distracted with bills, finances, relationship problems, you're not 100% in the moment with them, and they're not getting the best version of you, right? So life is going to be hard, no matter what. But you can choose hard and poor and scarce, or you can choose hard, abundant, and fulfilling.
Yes.
Right? But life doesn't get easier. So for those looking for, hey, how do I make my life easier? If you have the answer, you let me know, and I'll filter through it and see if it, you know what I mean? But to me, I've learned that life never gets easier, and if it does, it means that a lot of times you've given up on yourself.
Yeah.
And we don't want people to do that, right? You got to keep those promises to yourself. You want to always push yourself to the next level because someone is waiting for you. And I tell people, someone's waiting for you to help them unlock their problems, but we need to be, qualified. Qualified meaning we need to have gone through these experiences and adopted what we believe in and who we become so that we can help them reach their next level too. Okay, so those are my last final words.
Yes,
but if
yes.
you don't cut this off, I have a lot of final words. I have a lot of final words.
Well, then let me summarize what I heard. Life is a choice.
It is a choice.
What you attain in life was because you chose and went after it. Yes. You chose something, you took action, and you went after it. And that's all about a winning mindset. Thank you, too, for joining us again. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We're going to sign off. Make sure that you come back to us. And
life is fun.
And life is fun.